The final episode of the epic Disney Plus series Andor has dropped, putting a bow on what many have called some of the most compelling Star Wars content ever created. In just a minute, I'll explain that ending, both of them, and talk about what it means for the future of the series and the franchise. One of the reasons I didn't do reviews of this show on a weekly basis, other than the fact that we cover it live on our Friday night streaming Star Wars show, is that reviewing the show episode by episode would be like writing a book review chapter by chapter. Essentially, like an epic novel, there were 4 parts to this book. Episodes 1 through 3, part 1 of the story, was a prelude that set the stage and introduced all the players while providing enough motivation to put the wheels in motion of a much larger machine. Episodes 4 through 6, part 2, were Cassian's first mission for the rebellion. It showed him out for himself and doing what's best for him, but at the same time illustrating the tyranny of the larger foe. Episode 7 was an interlude that showed the impact of the first 2 parts of the story, and then episodes 8 through 10, part 3, solidified Cassian's transformation from rebel without a cause to freedom fighter. And of course, part 4 was the finale, episodes 11 and 12, where all the elements of the story came together, both literally and figuratively. I'm assuming you've seen the show, so I won't break it down piece by piece, but I want to talk about those 2 final scenes. After all that happens on Ferrix, Cassian has made the commitment to who he is, a rebel hero. Luthen even overtly said, "We need heroes," and Cassian has become just that. The show expertly took the time to show the viewer all the elements that converted this scrappy street-level thief to the future hero of the rebellion. He saw the willingness of the Corpos, an extension of the Empire, to literally blow up his hometown to catch him. We saw the oppression of the native culture of Aldahni to drive the Imperial machine. We gained insight into the manifesto written by the bright-eyed idealist Nemik, and it reminds Cassian that he is not alone, which is something Cassian has fought for his entire life. The brutality of the work camp on Narkina 5 demonstrated what the Empire is doing to keep the machine rolling while dehumanizing every prisoner. The final moment was the death of his rebellious mother, while his own experience with the tyrannical Empire finally illustrates to him what she's been teaching him since she adopted him. As Brasso told Cassian on behalf of his mother Maarva, he was already burning. He was just the first spark of the fire. He knows everything he needs to know and feels everything he needs to feel. When the day comes, he will be an unstoppable force for good. There's almost too obviously an equivalent to Poe's "We are the spark that lights the fire" speech in The Last Jedi, but these were the words that firmly converted Cassian. By the time the skirmish on the streets of Ferrix is over, Cassian has made up his mind. By the time he's made it to the end of the season, he's committed to getting his remaining loved ones out alive and knows he can't stop there, because Maarva wouldn't. As the episode reached its crescendo, Cassian saw Luthen on the streets of Ferrix and he knew he was there to kill him. But after ensuring Bix, B2EMO, Jezzy, and Brasso are on their way, he goes back to find him. Cassian confronts the rebel leader on his ship and tells him straight up that he knows this. He knew why Luthen traveled to Ferrix. Quote, "You came here to kill me," he says. And then Luthen, in a fatherly tone, tells him, "You don't make it easy." Then Cassian, who has matured, replies, "I will now." This proves to Luthen in that moment that he is willing to take the risk and possibly die for the rebellion. Luthen says, "What game is this?" Because Luthen has been going from facade to facade, doublespeak to doublespeak, this entire series. He expects something like that from Cassian because it's what he's used to. And Cassian replies, in the final line of the show, "No game. Kill me or take me in." The choice of words here is perfect. The phrase "take me in" says one thing, but means another. Take me in implies arrest me or capture me. But what Cassian wants is belonging and acceptance. In the previous episode, Cassian tells Zahn before he finds out that Maarva has died, "Tell her she would be proud of me." If he's going to join this rebellion, he needs to know that he's part of it. He's lost his parents twice. This is a recurring theme for him and one that he re-illustrates in Rogue One. He was sent to kill Jin's father, but he could not pull the trigger. His final words to her as they died on the beach of Scarif is,
"Your father would have been proud of you, Jin."
"Take me in" is not just coming from a new recruit. They are 3 words of a man who needs to be part of something, not just a piece of another machine. And speaking of parts in a machine, Andor as a show did not fall into the same routine as other Star Wars live action to date and deliver fan service cameos every week. This is not to say that's a bad thing. It's part of the Star Wars DNA, and fan service done right is fantastic. Andor had many chances to give the audience glimpses of deep-cut characters. Sly Moore, for instance, was on the guest list at Perrin's dinner party. The Senate scenes gave us ample opportunity to see familiar faces, including the Emperor. The only previously seen side characters throughout the entire 12-episode run were Melshi, who was part of the raid on Scarif, and Wolf Yularen, an ISB officer seen in animation and as a background character on Grand Moff Tarkin's boardroom meeting in A New Hope. But by doing this, they made the final 40 seconds of the season much higher impact. After all the credits roll, we're shown robotic arms welding, and then pan back to see walking droids constructing something. We soon realize they're putting the pieces in place that Cassian was building in the prison work camp on Narkina 5. As the camera continues to recede, it becomes clear that the droids are building the super weapon dish on the yet-to-be-completed Death Star, the very weapon that drives Cassian's most important mission in Rogue One and ultimately leads to his death. This works for this show because, like everything else, it was perfectly timed and paced. In just 40 seconds, the terrifying impact of the Imperial war machine is intensified yet again. The connection to the tipping point for Cassian's conversion and the link to Rogue One all come together. Introducing the Death Star earlier would have cheapened this moment, and by saving it until the post-credit scenes, it required no setup and no further interconnectivity. It wasn't fan service, and it didn't need an explanation. It was a those who know moment, and was higher impact than a wink and a nod character cameo from an Orson Krennic, Grand Moff Tarkin, or Lord Vader. So where does the show go from here? Well, we know from Tony Gilroy himself, who said at Star Wars Celebration earlier this year, that Season 2 will continue the 3-episode arc pattern, but each segment will cover 1 year, each headed toward Rogue One with, as Tony put it, the final scene leading directly into the 2016 feature film. We know that Luthen has survived. Dedra ended the season having her life saved by Cyril. Mon Mothma has put the rebellion in saving herself ahead of her family. Vel and Cinta were on their way to make their escape. And Brakes, Brasso, and B2 Emo are on their way off planet, hopefully to safety. Rumors are abound that production has begun on Season 2 this week. Gilroy told Rolling Stone that the next season is, quote, about learning to be a leader and how difficult it is to put the alliance together and what happens to people who are the original gangsters versus the establishment. We can expect Season 2 sometime in 2024. While there is chatter about the quality and tone of this series versus, say, The Mandalorian, there is no reason why these two types of shows can't coexist. In the modern era of Star Wars, stories are told in books, comics, movies, video games, animation, and live action. Each of these bring their own writers and creators, which of course lends itself to different styles. And for those that didn't enjoy this series due to pacing, politics, or simply the way it looked, that's completely fair. Since the Disney acquisition, there's been so much content that there's surely something for every fan. Star Wars is for everyone, but not every Star Wars story is. And that's why the reach and depth of the franchise and the fandom is so strong. I'm hopeful that Season 2 of Andor continues this style, these heavy storylines, and they take the time to build on the characters. The story of Andor so far has made it very clear when the opening crawl of A New Hope describes the bad guys as the evil Galactic Empire, there is no gray area. They are oppressive, tyrannical, and their defeat in the Return of the Jedi is truly a victory to be celebrated. Tell us what you thought of Andor in the comments below. Make sure to like and share this video, and subscribe to the channel to get more Star Wars content on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for joining, and may the Force be with you.